Hey everybody, thanks for pulling up the channel. Mr. Huxley says hi, and he's ready to go over here too. He likes it out in the greenhouse, so does his mama. It's getting warm out here, huh, Huxley? Yeah. We came out here this morning, it was nice and warm. That's one thing about a greenhouse, guys. You can come out, man, we like sitting out here just soaking up the sun, but it helps us on this printing material because we don't have to worry about lighting. We've already got it, but at any rate. Okay, today's video is going to be over the Gary points and all this confusion, you know, with these Dunns and Langtry and pointed stem table rock, and we got guys calling some of the stuff we're finding here in Oklahoma something totally out of state. Here's one of them right here. Let me find it. Morrow Mountain. Oh, that's way out of range. I mean, they look similar. So, Aaron, with me and my shadow on his channel, he requested that we do it, and I love doing this kind of stuff. So, let's get into it. But first off, I want to touch on a Perino story again. I try to do a little intro on these stories. And Greg told us about a caddo burial that they had started excavating on the Red River. He said it had 200 plus graves in it. Just off of some of the test digs. They just estimated, they went around the edge of this thing, and they just estimated that there was, you know, around 200 barrels in here. So they dug some of it, and they found pottery and beads and caddo blades, caddo dance blades, some people call them, and points in there, and you name it. And they covered it up because they didn't have any way to shelter the site, you know, and put a roof line over it and everything. So what they do, they roll wire out across the top of it and then put the earth back on top. But the looters found out about it, came in and looted that entire site before they'd come back and dig it. So that thing just was decimated. It's a tragedy. I wished we could have had a listing of all the goods that were found in there, and it could have been documented, but unfortunately this kind of stuff's happened. I mean, and of course this is back in the older days, but at any rate, so we're gonna find out here later that these points, these Garys, this if you can kind of shoot down here, and Gary and Dixon, and this Dunn, and we'll go over some more here, Adena's, are a stemmed variety, of course. And we're going to find out why some have been misinterpreted as Garys or misinterpreted as subtypes or whatever, because this is what happens, and Aaron's confused, and I understand, and there was a lot of confusion about this, there still is. When we were at the show, the last show at the Oral Roberts at the Indian Nation show, I ran into a couple of younger guys, and they were throwing this striker point out there on me. Well, I knew what it was immediately. It was either a Fairland or a Edgewood. Totally, where they come up with this striker? Hey, you pull it up. You pull striker up. Just do a search. You ain't gonna find striker point. You know why? It's not in the archaeological context. So I took one of these reference books over there and showed them what it was that they thought was a striker point, and they totally wouldn't agree. They said, "Oh no, that's okay. Well, you go try to put that out on a bulletin or something. You're gonna get laughed out of town. So that's not what it is." But at any rate, we're not gonna dwell on that. So let's start off with this Dunn, and you see here how these barbs are angled up into this. This one's really distinct. So's this one. That one as well. But they've got this rounded base that would make people be thinking, well, that's indicative of some of these Gary, Mason. We're going to get into Mason too over, I believe I've got it. Let me check, make sure, yeah. Yeah, we've got, no, maybe none. I thought I had Mason. Well, if we don't, it's right here. No, Table Rock, anyhow, we'll get there. Okay, so the Dunn point was named to describe a Leon Dunn, 1990. For a type found Dunn site number 1, Franklin County, Arkansas. So you can see, we don't have to get into all this basal configuration because you can see for yourself what's going on here. But here's the key to this one. The blade is triangular, having straight to slightly convex edges. Shoulders are strongly barbed, projecting diagonally outwards. Okay, that's nothing of what we're seeing on these Gary types. Okay. So let's go over here to Table Rock pointed stem. So Sissy, shoot back down here, right here, on this points right quick. See here? This one for sure. See those real narrow stems? This one probably was at one time. So that's what we're seeing here, guys. And and let's see what Greg says about this. This is Greg's books. We're going to get into some of Wyckoff here in a little bit. And we're looking at a date of 1000 AD to 1150. And it says they belong in the lofting phase of the late woodland culture and are contemporaneous with early Caddoan groups. And you're going to find out later here in some of this, you'll see the tie-in here, where we're going with the groups. It's too bad we know what the Caddo call themselves. It'd be nice if we knew what Foes and Clovis call themselves. But now, my grandfather said that the Indian Nation tribes that were in Oklahoma, that were all forced to come to Oklahoma, they call these Gary types a cane point. Well, it's easy to see why this stem would fit up into a piece of river cane. For sure. Now, you can haft them on a standard, wood haft, now, no doubt. But I really truly believe that they were onto something right there. But anyhow, let's go back to this Table Rock pointed stem. And it was named by Robert T. Bray in 1956 for a type found in the Table Rock Lake area in southwestern Missouri. Now here you go, preform. Same as for Gary points, except that they may have narrower stems. Well, we're seeing that. So distribution, limited to the western Ozarks, southwestern Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, and northeastern Oklahoma. And here's the kicker on this one. This is an unusual and easily recognized types which may have developed from the earlier Wabisa point of the Middle Woodland Hopewell in the same area. So if you remember the last ID we did, we kind of saw that progression, Both the Wabisa and the Table Rock pointed stem have been mistakenly lumped into the Gary Point series. Wow, that's no surprise. Bray chose to name it for an area of his studies in the Table Rock Lake area. Yeah, so here we go. We're back on this differentiation that shouldn't happen. I'm going to put that one in there probably toward the last here. But so let's go to Dixon. Let's go to Dixon here. Now this is Greg Perino. And let's see what we find out on this Dixon. And as you can see, there's a lot of different, especially this example F, which if I'm not mistaken, from St. Louis County, Missouri, this one right here. So you see just over a few miles, these things can change a little, And but they do look a lot like, you could say that's a Gary, but here's kind of the telling point. See these flatter stems? This right here probably is a sharpened down Dixon. See that stem? It's straight across. It's got a longer. But see, here's what happens again, guys. When altered by resharpenings. See, here's one here. What would that have been actually? Well, hard to say, but the base is totally different from this Dixon base. Okay. So distribution, I'm not really going to get totally into on this Dixon. Let me see. Yeah, few quantitative eastern Oklahoma are available. Okay, and they're calling some of this in Havana areas and Kaskaskia River valleys. And so this is a pretty wide-ranged point. Let's find out more about that. Age and cultural affiliation. Dixon and or Wabisa points were the only variety found in early woodland black sand context at the Pisker site. Calhoun County, Illinois. They, with the Snyder's variety, are the major type used by the Middle Woodland Havana tradition peoples in Illinois. Thus, the type has a long history ranging from around 500 BC to AD 350. So here we're getting into that range word again, which is, noteworthy. Now here you go in remarks, and Greg, that's what I always like about him, and he cites some of this stuff, and there's references in the back, and you can check some of these references. Some of them are online, they've been digitized, and more than I've ever seen. A lot of it's digitized. They still have libraries, by the way, but getting to that would be difficult. But anyhow, so Greg says some points in western Arkansas and northeast Oklahoma, classified tentatively as Gary points, belong in this category. Narrower convex sided points with broad rounded or narrow rounded bases have been named Wabisa by Barrius, 1953, some of which are illustrated by Ritzenhaler, 1967. In Wisconsin, Indian projectile point types. Dixon and Wabisa points are found on the same sites and are related. So that kind of covers, those two. This is just to sharpen down Dixon, and most people would say, oh, well, that's a Gary. Well, easy to do, isn't it, when they're altered by resharpenings. So that pretty well takes care of that Dixon, and we're probably going to end up with some other controversies here, and I get it. I do get it. Aaron, he's confused because he's got a lot of people that's commenting on his videos. Well, it's a this or it's a this. So look at this Morrow Mountain, guys. That stem is kind of similar to Gary's, but boy, it's not very long, is it? None of these really are. That's more like a preform right there. I wouldn't be a bit scared to venture and say these three down here's knives, no doubt. But at any rate, let's see where this Morrow Mountain site is. The point has been named by Geoffrey Coe, 1964, for examples found at the Dorshik site located on the Yadkin River northeast of Morrow Mountain, Montgomery County, North Carolina. Boy, that's a long ways from here. Wow, long ways from here. But the age, look at the age, 5,000, 4,000 BC. That's not even in this context. Well, let's move on to Miss Morrow Mountain. We shot that down real quick. No surprise. So these guys calling these things Fiskers and Morrow Mountain. But here's one that gets thrown around a lot too. Adena Dixon. Wow. Well, for good reason. There you go. See, here's some of this basal treatment. More bulbously round, I would interject. This one not so much. But Adena's is a really wide-ranging older culture, which we're going to find out here in a minute. So the Adena point is a large dark point, which has been recognized for a long time as a characteristic type found with the Adena culture in the Ohio Valley. Does this particular type range into Oklahoma and northeast Arkansas and Missouri? Well, later it did. Okay, who's this? Robert Bell. So I don't want to get that confused with Perino or the other one. But anyhow, so there's your description. 3 to 5 inches in length. They weren't giant points. The Adena types found chiefly in the upper Ohio River Valley, especially states of Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. They also occur in surrounding areas. 1956, Nieberg reports that the type represented throughout Tennessee. No surprise there. Specific, now get this, specific examples from Oklahoma have not been reported. Well, see, and I had Adena Dixon wrote on there and had a question mark on my note. For good reason. See there, Adena Dixon question mark. Okay. let's get into the age. There are a number of radiocarbon dates for Adena sites in Ohio and Kentucky. That's 1957. These assays suggest an age ranging from about 800 BC to 800 AD. So, pretty good range, about 1400 years there. The type is associated with Adena culture, early woodland manifestation in the eastern United States. Nieberg indicates a type associated with the late archaic cultures of Tennessee. Now see, we're getting a bunch of this stuff thrown our way that does not really, in context, belong here. Hey, if we didn't follow the archaeological data here, the literature, guess what we're going to have? We're going to have an artifact, you know, you're all over the place, is what you end up doing. So you have to be able to weed some of this stuff out. But this little book right here is going to clarify a little bit more about this stuff. Let me see here real quick. Yeah, it's just not in context here in Oklahoma. If it is, it's been traded from a way off, you know, obviously, and came in here. So here, and I'm gonna correlate another point out of Texas here. We're gonna get into in a minute. But this first one is, here's your Gary, and here's the little Garys. The Gary Ito. That literally means, you know, little Gary. So that was applied, Greg says, facetiously by Dr. Clarence Webb in the Caddo area near the Red River. And there's been a lot of these little Garys found. You know, there's several right here that would fall into that category. Maybe not so much this one. It's got a weird looking base, but yeah. You know, it's just sharpened down Gary, and they shot little ones, you know. If they didn't want a real heavy tip, you know, obviously they went small. You get Huxley out of your way, Mama about set on him. So, the type has a long time span having been made by some archaic groups, possibly as early as 1000 BC, and by Neo-Caddoan groups as late as AD 1600. And I tell you what, guys, you got to admit this. The Gary has saved the day on a lot of getting skunk trips, because, man, I can remember finding just one or two, and that made my hunt. Where otherwise you probably wouldn't found anything. But these things, these people must have been real prolific, these Caddoan groups, because there's Gary points everywhere. So, let's see here. That didn't give much of a... What he's done here, he's putting these two together for reasons. So right here, he's talking about Gary Ito points are found on late Force Maline, Coles Creek, and early Caddo sites in the four-state area, which is southeastern Oklahoma, southwest Arkansas, northwest Louisiana, and northeast Texas. They date about AD 600 to 13, so, you know, a little later, according to the comparison there. So let's go over here now, let's get on this Langtry. Now look what can happen here. Look at that stem. So, there's just one example on all these. Greg just made this book pretty concise and pretty short and to the point, which I like that. Nothing wrong with that. This book, by the way, was at the show for, Robert Perino had these for $20 a piece, wasn't it, huh? Yeah. Yes. And Josh, our son Josh, he ordered this book for us, which was on sale for $100, but you had to order it so that you'd pay it up front and they shipped them out, and he didn't even tell me about it till later.
Worth every bit of it.
Yeah, it's worth every penny, but it was a surprise, and I appreciate him getting us that book, because I want to get a volume 1 and 2, but man, volume 1s are, if you find one, they're extremely expensive. But let's get on this Langtry here real quick. Named by Charles Kelly for examples found in Texas. Well, it's not unusual for Texas types to show up in Oklahoma and vice versa. Medium-sized dark point with a truncated stem. That's what he's talking about right here. And it's pretty easy to pick that out, but look at your Dixon right here. It's too big. I've never seen Langtrys with that with that big and wide a base unless it was a Langtry knife. But we're going to do some descriptive on this base here just in a little bit. But anyhow, it is usually thin, well chipped, shoulders are prominent, widely flaring, barbed. The stem is long and contracting. The base is usually concave, sometimes straight. Now here's where it gets good. The Oklahoma variant of the Langtry point was made and used from late Archaic to early woodland. Pretty good span. Dating approximately 1000 BC to a few centuries AD. So yeah, that thing got a lot of leg time, no doubt. I love this little book. It's just short to the point and you don't miss much in it. So let's go. There was something else I thought I had in that Oklahoma artifact book. I guess I just brought it for reference too in case we need to go in a little more on some of these collections. But you see these in all these collections. But look here, guys. Let me use well, that won't work. Let me fold this over here right quick. Get on a fresh sheet. If you look at the Gary point, let's do this. Get a Dixon in between the Dixon out here. Let me line them up on these writing lines. Now you're going to see a distinction here. Not so much this one. But almost all Gary points you're going to see they're never even across these barbs or shoulders. And I think, look at this Dixon even. See how this thing runs up here and it's not broke, it's not damaged. They made it that way. See how those lines come across? This shoulder's a little higher than this one. And then they would taper one and concave the other more. I think that's where they tied it off, right there. When they hafted it and wrapped it, I think that's where they tied it, right there. Can't prove it. Have to do some tests on it. You know, nothing. I've already played with some of these. Put them in a piece of cane. If you're not familiar with a channel that Ryan Gill has called Hunt Primitive, you should look him up. He's tested somebody on those Florida standpoints, and just pull that up and go through his playlist. You'll find it, and it's pretty informative and explains a lot of this basal treatment. I want to thank Sam Noah for making us. He made us, what, ain't 3 of these?
3 of them.
These little stands, they're really neat. They're made out of cedar, the handmade. He makes that stuff. If you're interested in his work on some of this, we can forward you his information, but pretty neat. So I'm not going to get in this book. We might do some of that later on it. But Aaron, I hope that helped out. And here again, here's the key to it. These people were on foot. If there was any trade, it came down a river route, and it took years to usually get any of this stuff, you know, going back and forth. But the resharpenings, when altered by resharpenings, that's where you get into some of these discrepancies. And you got guys that's looking at the first stage and saying it's this, and a later stage, and they're calling it that. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get confused. And but that pointed, I will say this, on those pointed stem table rocks, they're very well made, and they're thin, like this point. This point came out of Arkansas, I was told. And they said they got it in a rock shelter, again. Like this.
Sideways.
Oh, sideways. So see how straight that booger is? They were very well made. And don't get me wrong, Gary's, a lot of them, you know, you'll find are really well made too. And then as they sharpen them and break them and resharpen, they get kind of clunky and crude, and that's just part of it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and Aaron, anytime you need some more work done, just drop me a message or text me or whatever, and we'll sure get on it. And that's how easy it can be to get sideways on some of this stuff. And it's not any certain person. It's, you know, it's just especially at those shows, you can get 10 opinions on one point that should be clear cut. I'm not going to say they're all clear cut, but you know, like Donnie and I, we'll get together on something. Hey, what do you think that is? And if you knee jerk it, you're probably going to knee jerk too fast, but you just got to do some research, do a little work. So Sissy and I, we had our Thanksgiving dinner here at home. Man, we got some of these small new potatoes out. They were just tender and great. Mm-hmm. We did, honey, what are you going to tell them what we did with greens?
Oh, we cooked greens. It was delicious.
We blended the chard and the collard and the kale all together. And it was just so tender and flavorful.
These kales grow. This is a potato, but look, right here, there's kale grown in with it.
Red Russian. I didn't have an extra tab planned in, so I just plugged them in there. Well, all right, guys, we're going to turn you loose here. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit that thumbs up. If you don't subscribe, that's your business. I get it. But that'll keep it in a loop. And comment if you got anything that you want looked at or some more work done on. We'll sure do it. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you on the next one.